already finished and was zoned the fuck out. Then she goes to squeeze between my desk and the one in front of it, and I didn't even notice her there until her butt was firmly squeezed against my hand, her butt cheek crushing my hand on the desk's edge. Embarrassing situations. A rather shitty yet unavoidable part of the human experience. And our brains love them, even though we hate them. Evident by the fact that your brain will never let you forget, no matter how badly you want or try to. We even experience second-hand embarrassment, like how does that even make sense? Why am I cringing so hard I fuse into my chair when someone else makes themselves look stupid? Do you have any idea how hard it was for me to watch Ratatouille for the first time because of this shit? There's a hair on the mic. That being said, here are some situations in which I felt really embarrassed, and at the end I will give you a little tip that helped me a lot in dealing with them and not letting it keep me up at night too much. So stick to the end of the video if you want to see that. It all started in my second year of kindergarten. I've been making a fool of myself for that long. You know what they say, if you seek mastery, better start young. So I was kind of autistic as a kid. I had like very little concept of social interactions and zero filter whatsoever. I just said whatever the fuck was on my mind. So one day it was recess and there was this girl in my class sitting on a bench alone, and upon seeing her, inspiration struck me in the form of a really stupid pun about her name. So me being the idiot that was me, I just walked up to her and was like, hey, and I told her the pun. Now in my head, this joke was peak comedy.
Funniest shit I've ever seen.
But looking back, it was just really stupid and it didn't even make any sense. So this poor girl just looks at me like, so I was like, okay, and just walked away. And I didn't even feel an ounce of embarrassment until many years later, in hindsight. Like, kids' brains are just different, man. I wish I could get half that confidence back. Another embarrassing situation that I had with a girl, I was also really young. I was at a bookstore with my family and my brother and I were looking at Goosebumps books, which we were like obsessed with. We had to buy any new ones we came across. I still think they're pretty neat, but not nearly as scary as I thought they were back then. It's like on the same level as creepypastas. Also, it's called Sarkh al-Ra'b in Arabic for some reason, which would translate to the scream of horror. Don't ask how it got to that, I don't know. So anyway, I'm standing next to my brother going through the titles, trying to remember which ones we already have at home. Then I turn to him and say, I don't know why, but whenever I say its name in my head, I feel like I hear a distant bell sound. Which is perfectly normal, obviously. There was only one problem though in this situation. My brother had already left without me noticing, and in his place was a girl that looked the same age as me or slightly older, and I found her kind of attractive. She just stood there and looked at me really confused, so I just ran away. I sprinted out of the whole shop and over to where my parents were waiting outside. Like, imagine if you are talking to a girl you just met, who you low-key like, and then you fumble the bag at some point and just bolt. I had zero riz, man. Or maybe I did, I don't know, like, is that W or L riz? Would this work on you ladies? Let me know in the comments. I personally would find it really cute and funny if a girl that liked me got embarrassed and ran away like that, but who knows. Another embarrassing situation that happened to me as a kid, which I think a lot of you might actually relate to this one. One time I was at the supermarket with mom. Oftentimes she would go about getting stuff and giving them to me to take to the cart, which we leave somewhere close, instead of dragging it around. And looking back, that was also probably a parenting hack to make sure me and my brother don't get up to anything. Or well, so I don't get up to anything. I was the goblin child. Anyway, this one time, there was a lady at the supermarket that was dressed and looked so much like my mom. I walked up to her and tried to grab the thing she had in her hands. I wasn't really looking because I was like just grabbing it and turning it around already. But she didn't let go of the thing, so I turned around and saw this confused lady looking me dead in the eyes. So I turned around and I just ran away again. I think that was just my reflex to any uncomfortable situation as a kid. As I was running, I heard her cracking up and telling me to pay attention.
Watch it, kid!
Which in the moment made me feel more embarrassed than I already was, but looking back now that I am an adult, I'm pretty sure I unintentionally made that lady's day a bit brighter with my silliness. You know that thing teachers do when they lean down to help a kid sitting next to you and their butt is like right in your face? This has definitely happened to anyone who attended school like at least once, and I was no exception. Multiple times actually, but there is one time that stands out. We had this arts teacher who was super sweet, cheery, wholesome, and like just a walking beacon of positivity that was impossible to put out. As you can tell, I really liked her. And she also really liked me because I could draw pretty well. So one time in prep school during art class, she was walking around helping the other kids with stuff. I had already finished my thing and was zoned the fuck out. I was just sitting, waiting for the period to end. And I had my hand on the edge of the desk like this. Then she goes to squeeze between my desk and the one in front of it to get to a kid on my left. And because I was in La La Land at the time, I didn't even notice her there trying to pass through until her butt was firmly squeezed against my hand. I don't think she noticed, probably thought it was just part of the desk or something. In that moment though, time froze. I snapped out of my haze and I stayed completely still. More still than any dead body could ever hope to be. I was mortified, knowing that if I made even the slightest move with my hand, she would notice and I would get into hella trouble. Cause like, I think I was maybe 15 or 14 at the time, which is the age at which boys get super trashy and horny. And like, I was a horny little shit, I won't even deny it, but not the kind of guy to grab at people, you know? So with my reputation and maybe even getting suspended on the line, I just stayed still and hoped she doesn't notice. But to make matters worse, some kid walked up to her and started showing her something and talking to her. So instead of just brushing against my hand with her butt as she squeezed between the desks, she was now standing there like that, her butt cheek crushing my hand on the desk's edge. Which wasn't painful at all actually, because like, you know, butts are soft. But I was dying of embarrassment and shame. Internally, that is. Externally, I just kept my cool and looked away, pretending not to notice anything. Nothing was wrong. Eventually, the kid left and she did squeeze the rest of the way between the desks, and my hand was finally free. I don't know how long she had my hand trapped like that. The sense of time kinda goes out the window when you're in a predicament. But it was long enough to warm my hand up. That much I do remember. I just held my hand and sat there in awe of the experience I just had. And to be completely honest, to be real, to be 100% with you all, no cap, once the terror had worn off, I was in bliss. I know, but like, come on. You ain't gonna convince me any of you wouldn't have also liked touching a butt when you were 15. Like, that's just not happening. On a side note, I don't know if it's just me, but I've been in a lot of situations like that where I unintentionally get to touch something I absolutely shouldn't be touching. I keep my hands to myself at all times, but it still happens sometimes anyway, and it's not even always pleasant. I might make a video on just those later, so let me know if you want me to. For most people, there is a point where they grow out of embarrassing themselves. They have had enough experience in life to know how to avoid such situations. I still haven't reached that point. One time, I think during high school or maybe even my freshman year of college, I was taking a walk with my brother and there was a little fence thingy. It wasn't even waist high and it had a gate to the right of where we were walking. Him being a sane person, he just walks over to the opening. But as we've established, I was the goblin one. I tried to be cool and roll over the fence, but the little bag I had on didn't. It got caught on the iron and pulled me back, and I ate shit, bro. Like, the fence was actually slightly above waist height from the other side because of the ground there being lower, which is still not that much. I wasn't hurt at all, thankfully. Not physically anyway. But my charisma and prestige were definitely shattered in that fall. He laughed his ass off at me, obviously, and honestly I laughed with him. Like, I imagine from his POV it was hilarious. Overall though, not a bad situation. Definitely something to laugh about. I think it's a good memory to have. Unlike this next thing I'm about to tell you, which is probably the second most embarrassing thing I've ever done, and that is my hair during high school. Now, everyone goes through experimental phases with their hair at some point in their lives, and sometimes you might like something that everyone else thinks is ass, which is okay. Do your own thing and don't let people tell you how to live your life, which I did. I did my own thing, even though everyone told me I looked really stupid.
I'll be crying if I look like that too, bro. That's fucked up.
But what I wasn't prepared for is the fact that they were actually right. I looked really stupid. I can't show you pics, sadly, but let me describe it to you. In my head, I was going for the John Wick look. Specifically this part where the hair like goes off to the sides like that. Super smooth, 10 out of 10. I would be gay for Mr. Wick. We all would. But unfortunately, with my attempts at replicating that look, I ended up looking like Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. Like, legit, there's that one selfie I took that looks exactly like this picture of him. And finally, my worst ever embarrassing situation. I don't think I've told this to anyone ever. Literally not one soul. Or maybe I didn't forget. Nobody likes to shit at school. It just feels weird for some reason. And as someone who was kind of a germaphobe growing up, I avoided all public bathrooms like they were the Chernobyl exclusion zone. To me, the stalls were actually exploded nuclear reactor cores that would melt my flesh if I even walked into one, let alone sat on it. In fact, I don't think I even peed at school throughout all 6 years of primary school. Yeah, I was that dedicated to the cause. Anyway, here is some much needed backstory.
Oh, brother, this...
One day I was at school on a normal day and my biggest fear came true. My stomach started bubbling. And it was only the second period, so I had like at least maybe 6 more hours before I had any chance of being home. I knew I was cooked, so I just accepted my fate. I excused myself out of class and slowly made my way over to the dreaded school bathroom. When I did get there though, it was actually shockingly clean. Like, objectively, not just compared to my preconceived mental image. It didn't even stink, it just had a faint hint of bleach, so like, kudos to the janitors, honestly. I went into a stall, but it had a broken deadbolt, so I left it and went into the next one. I go about my business, wash my hands and walk back to class feeling the freshest I ever felt.
And I think to myself,
that was actually not bad at all. So the lesson to take away from this is don't knock something until you try it. That being said, now you're ready to hear my most embarrassing story ever so far. I was a changed man, a child. I was no longer scared to use the school bathroom with many cheerful visits under my belt. So one day I go to the bathroom and I notice it was busy. The only free stall was the one with the broken deadbolt from earlier. I remember that, but I kinda had to go, and I also didn't want to wait for one of the other stalls to open because that would be awkward, and I also didn't want to wait too long. I had a class to go back to. So I take a deep breath and get into that dreaded stall. The deadbolt was still broken many months later, but the door handle worked at least, so I figured that should be enough, right? The door is locked, so the stall is clearly occupied after all. So I sit down and go about my business, and then it happens. I hear 2 kids walk into the bathroom. I hear him tell the other kid to wait for him, he's gotta go. Only problem is, all the stalls are taken now with me and the last free one, and mine has no lock. So I'm already slightly uncomfortable. Then I hear him knocking on the stall to the far end and messing with the handle, and my heart drops. Then he does the same thing to the stall directly to my left, and I knew what was coming. It was my turn. He knocks on my stall, and before I could even utter a word, this dickhead pushes the handle and opens the door, with me inside on the toilet, with my pants down. I jumped forward and slammed the door shut in his face. Then I sat back down in shock, realizing everyone's worst fear had just happened to me, and wondering, like, the obvious questions you would ask. Did he see anything? How much did he see?
Did you see my underwear? Did you want to?
Eventually, I got my shit together and got out. I think he was just as embarrassed as me, if not more, because after I slammed the door in his face, he screamed, and I heard him awkwardly scuffle out of the bathroom, which serves him right.
Get what you fucking deserve!
Like, what kind of fucking asshole checks if a stall is occupied by fucking opening it, even if it's locked? You know, the mental anguish you would be causing the person inside by messing with the door handle? That is just the worst feeling. You are only allowed to knock gently and wait, and if you get no response, leave. If the person inside doesn't make a sound after you knock, it's probably because they are having a heart attack, not because they are not there. I hope that little shit learned a valuable lesson that day, as I did, because after this happened, I would now rather shit my pants than use a stall that has no deadbolt or any other kind of lock from the inside. Honestly, that kid should be thankful for the Geneva Convention, except for the fact that I haven't read it and thus it doesn't apply to me. So you better fucking pray that I don't randomly run into you one day. Now it's time for the solution I promised you at the beginning of the video.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for.
When you remember something stupid you did and feel embarrassed, ask yourself, how many other people remember this? Intuitively, some people might say, everyone, obviously, it's such a big deal. But then ask yourself, when was the last time someone else embarrassed themselves that you remember? You probably won't remember that many situations, and the ones you will remember, you probably won't just laugh about it. You won't find yourself feeling as scornful about it towards that person as if you would be if it was you who did the same. So now, with that perspective, ask yourself again, how many people actually remember the stupid thing you did, and how do they feel about it? The real answer should be obvious to you now. You're just a self-centered little bitch who thinks everything is constantly about you and everyone is watching your every move. We all do. Our brains just think that way. But in reality, we are all nothing more than background NPCs to each other in public. And the people who do witness your embarrassment are entirely inconsequential to you anyway. If it even makes it into their long-term memory, you're not gonna meet these people ever again. I hope this helps you, as it has helped me. And by the way, I read this in a post somewhere online. I cannot take credit for it. I'm just passing it along. But that's enough about me. What are some embarrassing situations that you have experienced? Tell me about those in the comments. I would love to read them. I might even make a video reacting to your stories if there's good material in there. And don't forget to like the video if you liked it, share and subscribe if you're new here. I have a Discord server you can join if you want to be friends or more. And if you want to support my content as well as my life goal of moving the fuck out of Egypt, you can do so directly by buying me a coffee through the link in the description. It's like a coffee date. Just the two of us. I shall fuck off now. But I will be back soon. So don't go anywhere.